this last week. We have players pushing players. You had Davies pushing Rose last year. Look what that turned Rose into. And I think Trippier pushing Walker. I think we'll also get Walker right. And if we have continued performances like we had against that back four, I thought they were very good. You guys saying?
Yeah, there's a lot of competition in the England back four for spaces. You've got Klein, you've got Shaw, you've got the Woolwich lad, Kieran Gibbs.
But he hasn't even played. He hasn't even played, and he's on the England team. It's a joke.
Well, yeah, I know. And unfortunately for Trippier, because he's not getting any minutes right now, I think he's got a bright future as well. And I've only seen him a couple of times, and in a lily white shirt, and from what I have seen, it's all been great. So before we switch gears, fellas. Yep. Because it is the international break, and we've got some time to dwell on the opening month of the season, and we've obviously deliberated enough about our performances where we could have been, and it is what it is. We're on 3 points, and going back to what I hearkened to last week, take those same fixtures, not the same 4 weeks of the season, but the corresponding fixtures. We are down in points. I think we had 6 points from Everton and from Leicester. Now we only have 3 points. But, looking for those silver linings, 3 games unbeaten, and White Hart Lane is a fortress. Anyway, I digress. Yeah. So let's talk about the 4 weeks of the season. Let's look at this past weekend. Saturday morning, the Woolwich got lucky. 10 men and they get an own goal, which is
and that's
typical.
The second time. I think Palace, they've had an own goal to win that game as well. 6 points off own goals in the first 4 matches.
Yeah, they've scored as many goals as us, but their actual squad has only scored 1. But however, they've got a lot more points than us. So moving on, Chelsea seem to be in turmoil. They lost again for the second time this season.
At home, no less. At home.
Yeah, they were pardewed, as a good friend of mine mentioned. They got back to level peggings only to go a goal down almost immediately after that. So, yeah, Jose is telling the boardroom not to panic buy, but he's certainly got to be thinking, this isn't certainly what I had planned, because home draw to Swansea, played off the park at City, playing let's face it, West Brom have been pretty awful up to this point, and only got their first points of the season due to Stoke being worse than them, and down to 9 men, and obviously then they lose at home to Palace. So They've had, other than the City game, a pretty cushy schedule, and they've only got 4 points. So not good for Chelsea. Liverpool, I heard someone say that West Ham are the modern-day version of Robin Hood. They rob from the rich, and then they give to the poor. Obviously, if you read between the lines, they've gone to Arsenal, Liverpool, stolen all the points, only to give them away to the poor people of East London. So that I think highlights the inconsistency of the season. The fact that they lost at home to Leicester and to newly promoted Bournemouth, yet they've managed to win 2 very good games for them, and in the process kept 2 clean sheets. So Liverpool obviously hit a road bump after starting the season well, and now United, having not conceded in their first 3.5 games, because it's 0-0 at half-time, go a goal up at Swansea, only to concede 2 arguably soft goals. The second one, definitely Romero should not have let in. That went under his body on his near post, but well played by Swansea, and now United have really shown their true colours, because they've not played well in their first 3 games and have been fortunate through either good defending or the impact of Schneiderlin, and come away with an unbeaten record in the first 3 games, having conceded none. And now they were exposed woefully today. And Wayne Rooney has gone now 10 games in a row for United in the league without scoring.
Yeah.
And so they need another striker. They let Van Persie go, and they let Falcao go, and they're telling Chicharito he can go. So they must have a master plan. And it is not Gareth Bale.
They've been terrible. They've been terrible in this window. I don't want to spend a lot of time on anybody other than us, but for as much money as they've spent and still haven't gotten it right, it's pretty deplorable. I'd be absolutely irate. I mean, we spent $100 million and F that off pretty quickly. They've done that with double the amount, and they still lose to Swansea. I'd be irate.
Well, and you look at the table, and we've talked. It's early days. Stoke City is much better than 18th place. We are much better than 16th, we hope. Chelsea's 13th. Southampton's 10th. That's probably where they should be. Liverpool's 7th. But the top, Manchester City, they've been playing out their ass. They definitely look the class of the league early days. Then you have Crystal Palace, Leicester City, and Swansea in the top 4. So, yes, it's going to change.
Yeah,
and Leicester's an interesting. Talk about transfer windows, and we're going to get wrapped up here in a second. Mahrez is such a hot commodity right now, and you have teams out there that would probably pay $20 million to get him on their squad. Leicester need him to stay up. They will not sell him. Not this year. I don't see it. Unless they absolutely fall off the face of the earth and something happens in the winter window, Mahrez is a name. It's been bantered around a little bit, and I think we were even linked to him in the middle of the off season, just as we were linked to, I think, God and everybody else. I think they had me as a striker linked for about 10 cents going into this. So, you have to. That's one of the things about the transfer window you have to look at. Is can these teams that have started off hot afford to let these players go and still maintain? Swansea, I think, have done a great bit of business since last year. Offloaded Boney, and Gomez has come in, and it's looked absolutely seamless, which from a board standpoint and a coaching staff standpoint is exactly what you want. And some of these other clubs have struggled. Chelsea's been relatively quiet. Yes, they went and got Falcao, and they just signed Pedro for, $21 million, and West Brom want 25 for Berahino. So put that in perspective for a minute, and tell West Brom to go suck on one, because
was it 57 mil for De Bruyne today from City?
Yes.
That's stupid money.
Somebody put that entire contract with wages into context, and it's over £200 million over I think a 5 or 7 year period. It's just
ridiculous.
And so and it is a cause for pause, and it is a cause for context. I know we've got to get to listener questions here, but in the disadvantage, how do you compete with that? You don't. When they're just throwing away money.
You let them spend that and hope their chemistry goes to shit.
I totally agree. I'll just say this:
they're playing, they don't need him.
No, right. Our success is finding what we should have done. Like we should have signed Suarez when we had a chance. Though that's how we're going to succeed. We don't have the capability to go piss away that kind of money for a player that arguably might not even be worth it.
Yeah. All right, Sammy, listener question.
Jerry Francis, Dennis Bergkamp.
Bergkamp is the one that really grinds
me. He wanted to be Spurs, too. All right, so we have got, I think, a good bit of... We did cover one listener question, which was Pete Hain, which is, when's it okay to start panicking? And it's a fair question. I think
Tuesday, 5 minutes after the window closes, if we don't sign anybody.
Yeah, I mean, if we only sign one player, I sense that there will be people that will be jumping off of the Spurs cliff, so to speak.
I think we've got to wait until we've seen G and Son play.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to be maybe as distraught as you would have thought I would have been if we are not going to sign a CDM. Do I wish that we were more active? Do I wish that we spent more? Yeah. It's all about results. So to answer Pete's question directly, I think we're probably 3 or 4 really shitty results and performances away from really being able to question the manager's future at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. That's just me. Let's see here. Other questions. The great Paul O'Keefe asked a question about Franco Baldini, and I want to try and find it exactly. I think he was asking, is he a villain or is he just sort of, his role misunderstood?
I think he's a scapegoat. He's a scapegoat.
Yeah. It's a hard question to answer, right? I mean, I don't really know what his real role is or what his real role was. I mean,
he's the director of football operations, right?
So what are we able to blame him for?
Well, the biggest thing that people will blame him for is that he just had to have Eric Lamela from Roma. Had to have him. Grossly overpaid for him. It's not Lamella's fault that he cost $30 million with all the incentives and add-ons and everything like that. I think the real price was 17. So it's kind of like Soldado. We really didn't pay $28 million for Soldado. We paid, what was it, 15 or 16 or something like that. I think that will be, unless something dramatic happens with Lamella and he turns it around and becomes a very productive player, which at this point with Son coming in, he's going to be a bench, he's going to be a role player, and we all know he's not an impact sub, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. He could be a winter off. He could be a surprise to Italy off before the window closes, maybe even out on loan. So I think he's a brilliant football mind. I just don't think that he has the capability to do it quite at this level, bringing in the players to play in the Premier League. I just don't think I think he's more geared for Italy or Spain or someplace like that. I really just don't think that he has the mental acuity that's needed to do this in England. I really don't.
Interesting. Cheers.
Well, it's interesting. It is interesting you did not use the antonym of villain, and you were starting to go there because he's definitely not a hero by any stretch of the imagination. And I think it has been a failed exercise, to be honest. And I've never been a big fan of the director of football, and I'm very open to the modern ways of football. But I've just not seen it work for us. It didn't work with what was his name. Damien Canoli?
Canoli, yep.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people will say was unfair for not to give him more time, and Liverpool as well. He has a body of work. A lot of really intelligent guys really respect him, but just feel like that he wasn't given his just deserves either here nor at Liverpool.
But the bottom line is that it ended up being a failure under both of them. It really has. Now, some people will argue, look, if you go back 5 years, we finished 5th, 4th, 5th, 5th, 4th, or something, whatever the numbers are.
But Harry didn't have a DOF.
No, he did not. And the one common denominator is who brought those two directors of football in, Daniel Levy. So the Levy haters will hang their hat on that. And it's going to be really interesting to see how the whole Paul Mitchell experiment with the little black box and all of the underground stuff that they use to grade players, whether it's G, whether it's Son, whether it's anybody else that we bring up. Dele Alli, I don't know if he was a part of that, but he's obviously a talent. It's going to be really interesting to see how those players pan out. Now listen, Southampton have produced some wonderful footballers, and it's better than what Baldini has done for Spurs. It really is. His legacy is going to be that he pissed away the bail money. That's what Baldini's legacy is going to be.
And we kind of touched on this. There's not too many directors of football that have been given that amount of money with such great critical. I mean, that's a huge project that he undertook, and he had a very short period of time to do it. I hijacked a Twitter conversation with Gabriel.
Marcotti?
Yeah, Gab Marcotti and Tancredi Palmieri, where both of them, to a T, talked about, in football circles, Baldini has a lot of respect, but there's no question that his, his, I don't say death knell, if you will, but certainly his marquee point in his career to make his mark as a DOF was a fail, and but a lot of people will say that the system is now that you've got Mitchell identifying players. You've got Levy ultimately signing off on the money part of being involved with, I guess, the negotiations. But you have really Baldini as the guy. A lot of guys will say now that the sales were really Baldini's responsibility in this window. I have no idea whether that's true or not. So to answer Paul's question directly, probably a little bit of both. Deserves to be a villain, was probably a victim, and that it's somewhat of a thankless exercise that everybody seems to think that if you're just given that money, that in and of itself sort of takes care of the problem, which it doesn't. Other questions. Let's see. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm just kind of going through this. I didn't take as many. This is Oside Hotspur, which is Matt Downey. What Deadwood will still be around after the DD? Is Adam Iora still going to be here?
West Ham really need a striker, but the fine print on the wages is going to be the holdup, isn't it?
Yeah, he's basically telling everybody a big FU. If that doesn't sort of say doesn't speak to the kind of person that he is.
Yeah.
He just doesn't. He just wants to be paid,
Yeah.
right?
And listen, a lot of footballers, not